All right, let's round out these top 25s with 4A. Let's begin with normal. Jaheim Weber, 6'10. Noah Cleveland, 6'9. Kobe Walker, 6'10. And they got a transfer from Bloomington, Nico Newsom.
Yep. And then the point guard, Braylon Roman, he's about 6'5". So you're looking at an average starting five of potentially, if they all start, you're looking like 6'8". When Glenbard West won state with all those big kids, they weren't this big. So that's just to give you an idea of how massive this team is. And they're not just big; they're good. They have a good coaching staff. This program has one of the most solid cultures in it of any program in the state. Dave Witzig and staff do a tremendous job. It's a blue collar team. I like watching them play. They used to come up to the Hananiga tournament in January, and that was one of the few spots I was able to see them rather easily. That tournament doesn't exist anymore, so now I have to travel a little farther to see them. They're in the Wheaton South tournament this year, so that's pretty cool. But they're number one. I think you could have made a legitimate argument for any of these first four that we're going to talk about to be number one. They're just who I chose to go with.
Downers North is next. They got the Princeton recruit, Jack Stanton, come back along with a host of others.
Yep, a really nice 24 class to go alongside Jack Stanton. They won their football semifinal game today, so they're going to be playing football and basketball season. They started their own Thanksgiving tournament. They got Von Steuben, Timothy Christian, Lombard College Prep of America, who I'm sure most people have never even heard of. And then they're going to get Matea Valley Saturday afternoon. So I don't know how many of the kids play football. I think one or two do. I don't see that impacting what they're going to do week one. They go to Oak Park. They get a home game against Hinsdale Central. And then that team road shootout, they get Curie. So that would, if they're not rocking and rolling by Curie, that could be an L. But they're in the Jack Tosh this year, another great addition for that tournament. So and they're going to get. That was kind of my flaw in them last year was their strength of schedule wasn't great. The tournaments that they played in weren't. It wasn't their fault. Their tournaments weren't any good, but the East Aurora Holiday Tournament hasn't been real good for a long time. They were in that last year, right?
I
Or am I
believe
making that up?
I think they were in that last year, if not 2 years ago.
Made some changes with some tournaments. They're in the Winside Collides event at Bennett, which if they wanted to pre-sell tickets for that right now, they'd probably sell a couple hundred already. They're going to play Homewood Flossmoor in that fourth state. They were fourth in 4A. They sent shockwaves throughout the city and the state with their blowing out of Kenwood in that super sectional. Kenwood's who we're going to talk about next, so maybe that's a little bit of bulletin board material for Kenwood getting blown out in the super sectional. They've had to watch that tape all summer. What can you start us off with Kenwood?
Got Chris Riddle, Calvin Robbins, Jaden Smith. They got a ton returning. Then they also got the big man, 6'9", Alex Alstons.
Yep. Alex Alston's really good. I don't know if you have you seen him play in person.
I have not seen Kenwood play in a long time, in
Uh,
person at least.
he's every bit of 6'9". With his haircut, sometimes he's 6'11". But he nice smooth stroke lefty. I love lefty shooters. Saw Tom Izzo looking at him over the summer at Romeoville. He's got tons of high major interest. You can make an argument that he's the best player in the state. They always they usually the Nick Urban and the Mike Urban coach teams, they try to find some out of state shootouts, or they bring out of state teams into the state to play. They're going to play Thornton at the Chicago Elite Classic, so that was a little different to see. They're going to play Normal at the Highlands Shootout, and then they play Mount Carmel at the Bennett at the Winsides Collide at Bennett, along with the Red South Central conference that they're in. Their schedule is going to grade out as one of the best schedules in the state, and it usually does every year, at least since Mike Urban's been there. I'm worried, or my one major concern for them is veteran leadership at the point guard position, and I think it may be everyone's at least on paper concern for them. They have really talented young point guards. They got incoming freshmen, and then they've got another transfer to come over from Proviso West, Rajon Roberts, sophomore. So they have the talent. It's just the bigs are older and the guards are younger. They'll be fine.
HF, Homewood Flossner comes in next at number 4. They got some transfers. Bryce Hurd, Gianni Cobb, Carson Brownfield.
Yep. Brownfield was there and then he left and then he came back. He was one of those kids that thought the St. Rita project was going to work out. I think he quickly realized that it wasn't going to work out. So he jumped back to HF. Their returning roster was good enough for a top 25 discussion, but then when you throw in Division One point guard Johnny Cobb, and then high major talent and Bryce Hurd coming back to the state, that was that's like the pick of the litter type of transfer. Year 2 for Jameer Dismukes, 18 and 14 last year. They have an opportunity to show their strength and really flex their muscles at the Chicago Heights Classic. With the Hillcrest is kind of down, Marion Catholic is a little down compared to where they've been, and they have a new coach, so they have a great opportunity to start out 4-0, and then they're going to be at the Chicago Elite Classic. They're going to play St. Ignatius at the Team Rose Shootout in the Big Dipper. I haven't been to the Big Dipper yet. This may be the year that I go. This team's going to win a lot of games. They could certainly win them all. I don't know if they're probably going to get knocked off once or twice, but they're going to win a ton of games.
You'll really like that, the Big Dipper, especially. Oh, I went pre-COVID, and that place was bumping. It was a good time. Quincy comes in at number 5. Keyshawn Thomas, Caden Brown, and then they've got Bradley Longcore.
Yep, Longcore has been starting since he was a freshman. This is like they got 2 years now to make this thing work with getting back to state. They were close a couple of years ago, and Bolingbrook beat them in a super sectional. And then, last year, I think we all assumed we would get round 3 of Moline and Quincy in the sectional final. And O'Fallon really wiped Quincy out in that sectional. The game wasn't even close, and that was kind of a stunner to see. And I mean, I don't expect that to be a hangover for the season, but when you're looking at a preseason ranking, the last game of your season, you get clocked by a team that you should have beat. Had they lost to Moline in the sectional final by 10, I'd have probably had them 2 or 3 spots higher, which is arbitrary, but that's what rankings come down to sometimes. They should win the Western Big Six. They should be favored to win the Collinsville Holiday Tournament, even though they haven't won that either of the last 2 years. But this is another year where they're going to have to get through Normal in the sectional final to win that sectional. And they beat Normal, the last great Normal team. Normal had 1 loss coming into the season or the postseason 2 years ago when Quincy knocked them off. So could get a rematch of that one.
Lots like if you're a Blue Devils fan. You're high in this next team, Aaron. Loyola Academy, Tom Levatino's squad. Miles Bolin, Brendan Loftus, Adam Doherty.
There's been talk that the Miles Bolin kid is like the best college prospect that they've had in a long time. So that's interesting. And they got a Nick Patton come in from out of state. His dad got a job coaching, was it at Loyola or somewhere in the area? Anyway, his kid moved in. He's apparently getting some college looks. So not often do you get Loyola with an incoming transfer, but they got one. I saw them over the summer, and I don't take any stock in results, which the games that I saw them play, they lost. So, I like the way they operate. I think we all know what Livatino brings to the table. He's a very intense guy on the sidelines. I don't know if they can win the Catholic League outright, but I think, if at the end of the year there's a couple teams that are like 12-2 or maybe even 11-3, I don't know if anybody gets through that schedule undefeated. But I think this is their best chance to get down to state since Livatino's been there.
And they'll have a big test that first week, especially when they go to New Trier coming in next at their new gym in the Thanksgiving tournament. They returned Colby Smith, Logan Feller, Ian Brown, who ended up hitting 12 threes in a game last year, Chris Kirkpatrick, and they've got Max DePaulo.
Yep. It's been almost a revolving door of shooters for the last few years. They always play good defense. They're a physical team. The Central Suburban League conference play prepares any team. It's like when the Evanston teams were good. That schedule prepared them. When Glenbrook South, those teams. That's just a great conference. And I am excited. I don't know if excited's a good word. I'm going to go to that new gym. that first, or I'm gonna try to. There's it's a 9 a.m. game, I think, on Wednesday. It's like Butler College Prep and Lake Zurich. So maybe not a great game, but I'm gonna try to go just to see the new gym. I loved that old gym, and I realize why they tore it down because there's just not enough room. Like there's physically not enough space in Winnetka anymore to build anything new without tearing something down. Like there's houses, and I almost cried when they tore that gym down. I think I may have been one of 5 people that wish they would have kept it.
Make that 6. I
All right.
enjoyed it. I enjoyed it too. But yeah, it makes sense. It'll be interesting to kind of see how nice that new facility is. I'm sure it'll be beautiful. Brother Rice is next. Kale Cosme, fun player to watch. Him and Xavier Fitch.
Yeah, Caleb Cosme, like the little Mighty Mouse, he's an easy player to like. He's an easy player to root for, and they're kind of getting ballyhooed there in the fall leagues there that they were playing and winning all those games. I thought they were going to be a top 10 team anyway, which I had to pump the brakes a little bit because I saw them the summer in Romeoville and West Aurora, like beat them by like 15. So I was like, man, do I know what I'm doing? But start the year at the Riverside Brookfield tournament. They're going to get Joliet West on that Friday, probably RB if they win that game. They're in the Hinsdale Central Holiday Tournament. They're going to play Bloom at the Team Rose Shootout.
They have a fun schedule. I feel like home
I
games seem like
yeah, I'm showing them at Lane Tech on January 3rd.
there.
Also,
Yep.
that could be a good one.
Right.
I know Lane's going to be good. I know they think they're going to be really good. I think they'll be good. I just don't have them ranked. Uh, anyway, yeah, that's it for Brother Rice.
Number 9, we got the Spartans of Glenbrook North. Josh Fridman, that kid can fill it up, and then they return big man Patrick Schaller, a football recruit.
Maybe this is a little high, but they got 4 starters coming back. They had a nice year. If they were healthy last year, they probably beat New Trier in that postseason game. They got a game with Conant on Tuesday at home in the tournament that they're in. That would be I think that's a game that you want to circle for both teams because I like what Conant has coming back, but I like them for the Mid Suburban League, and you know there's a difference between Central Suburban League basketball and Mid Suburban League basketball. I know the faithfuls don't want to hear that, but that's just the way that it always shakes out in March.
That's a fun Thanksgiving tournament. I like the mix of teams in that. Glenbrook North, St. Pat's, like you mentioned, Conant, Niles West, Peyton. That should be there's some teams to keep an eye on that going forward for sure. Bennett is number 10. They lost a lot of production from last year, but they have probably one of the most talented classes Bennett's had in a long time, if ever.
Yeah, word on the street is this group, this next 3 to 4 year window is like the golden years for this program. They got a kid come over from Matea Valley, Nick Schroeder, but the 26 class, Gabe Solarski. I mean, they were just raving about him all summer. I saw them beat Whitney Young over the summer. They're good. I mean, and you get Gene Heidkamp as your head coach. I may actually have them higher in a preseason this year than I did last year, or maybe just a couple spots lower, and that's weird to even think about. I still think they beat Moline last year if the guard didn't get hurt. Nobody will want to hear that, but I mean, it made a big difference in that game.
Number 11, we've got the Dolphins of Whitney Young. They've got one heck of a sophomore group that is now juniors. Sean Brown and Anthony Munoz are the returners, but they got a lot that is coming up through the pipe.
They got a nice junior class and they got a nice sophomore class. The 26 class is really loaded. Anthony Munoz, there's a video going around on social media of him dunking from the free throw line. And he was probably a few inches behind the free throw line when he took off. It's a young team. Kind of ironic that Young has a young team. But if you don't get them this year, you're probably not going to get them next year or the year after that. They come to Rockford for that Auburn. They're calling it the Fred Van Vliet Thanksgiving tournament or something like that. They're going to play Auburn on Wednesday. I would have liked to have gone to that game, but I'm going to be running around the Chicago area, seeing as many games as I can in there. They're going to play Cardinal Ritter at the Chicago Elite Classic, and Ritter won one of the classes state titles in Missouri last year, starting 5 juniors. So that would be a really strong out of state test for Whitney Young. They're in the Proviso West Holiday Tournament. They're going to play Yorkville at the Winsides Collide. This ranking could be high, but maybe not. I mean, what everybody likes about their 26 group is those guards are all like high IQ basketball guards. They're really fun to watch, and I can hope they all stay together and continue to physically grow and mentally grow. And they're going to be really fun in a year and a half.
Up next, we've got Bolingbrook, the Raiders. They bring back a really, really slick guard, Josh Aniceto, DJ Strong, and they've got the freshman that's been getting a lot of hype, Davion Thompson, and then they bring in JT Pettigrew.
Yeah, Josh Aniceto, it seems like he's been there forever. Brost always has like one of those guards that it's just, I don't think Aniceto is going to play college basketball anywhere, but he's just a very good high school player. He always has one or two of those guards along with, Division I guards, which he has. Davion Thompson, I got a chance to see him at the RB shootout against Downers North, and he lit them up. And it was, it was like he didn't look like a freshman. He didn't play like a freshman. I'm salivating at the fact that we get 4 years of him. I hope we get 4 years of him in this state. JT Pettigrew coming over from Fenwick. This is about where they should be. They probably feel like they could be a little higher. Rob Brost, he's one of the best coaches in the state, and I don't know if he gets the credit for the job that he does. He does a really nice job of just coaching effort. He doesn't worry about the small things early. He wants to see players hustling out there. Doesn't overmanage the game. He's not worried about, burning a timeout when the team gives up a 6-0 run or an 8-0 run. He wants to get the players to play through some of the ups and downs of the basketball game. And if you look at like historically, they'll always like lose the game where you're like, man, like for like 3 or 4 years in a row, Lincoln Way East was beating them in the conference game. And that was, before Lincoln Way was real good. But then, they're always in the hunt for a sectional. Like they're just right there. One of the premier 4A programs in the state.
And they'll add to that loaded Jack Tosh Holiday Tournament field as well. Curie, they check in next. They bring in, again, talking about guys that have been there forever, Carlos Harris, Christian Brockett, and then they got the sharpshooting transfer, Will Gonzalez from Riverside Brookfield.
Yep. Harris, just it does seem like he's been there for a long time. He's a Division I guard. Last year was such a weird year for them. There was I don't want to call it a fight, but there was a scrum with them and was a Proviso East, and they just shut the game down, and then they had to forfeit a conference game to Hyde Park, and they lost some weird games. They won some games that make you think they're getting things going, and then they got knocked off by Lions in the regional final, right?
Right.
And Lions was good last year, but it was a game that Curie probably should have won. I'm hoping for all of our sake that there's a little bit more consistency from this Condor team. I don't know what kind of depth they'll have. Christian Brockett is a kid that I liked. I saw him as a freshman at Leo. I can't believe that kid's still in high school. It seems like he's been around forever. The last few years, it doesn't seem like they've played with a ton of size, so I don't know if, Tavion Colliver's, I still have him on my returning roster. I don't know what his role will be with them. I don't know if they can win the Red South Central or not. Kenwood's obviously the favorite, but that postseason path is always just a grind with those West Suburban league schools, and then the Red South West and the Red South Central schools, or the Red Northwest. Sorry.
Yorkville, number 14 on the list. They've got the Illinois bound Jason Jackson, 6'10", and he's also got some help. Jory Boley, Davion Johnson, Kavion Johnson, senior heavy group out for the Foxes.
A lot of these kids were at Yorkville Christian a few years ago, and it's a nice feeder program for the Foxes to pick from. You get into the territorial battles of conferences, and Oswego East has won that conference 5 years in a row, and so I have Yorkville higher than Oswego East. So there's a little bit of, you could say Oswego East may be a little disrespected by the ranking, but I like what Yorkville has coming back. Oswego East lost a lot, but they did look good over the summer. We're going to talk about Oswego East in a little bit, but Yorkville in the Jack Tosh tournament, they're in the Winsides Collide. Their non-conference schedule, they only have the opportunity to play a lot of non-conference games because you got to play 16 conference games in the Southwest Prairie. I was going to try to see them early on at the Sycamore tournament, but the the misses put the kibosh on that. I got to go do other stuff. So I'm going to try to see Yorkville at West Aurora on November 28th. That's the game that I got on the calendar. And as long as I don't get hit with a kitchen pass, I'm going to be there.
Number 15, we've got Simeon. They've got a new coach. Rob Smith has retired. Tim Flowers is now in. And they've got a big transfer, Andre Tyler, to go along with Taquan Brown and Rashad McKinney.
Yeah, new coach, new starting five. I don't know if this is how people felt when Hambrick retired and Rob Smith took over, but you don't know what to expect really, or I don't. 15 could end up being really low. It could end up, I don't know. I felt comfortable with them at 15. They're going to play the same out of state games that they always, they're running around the country all over the place. We'll know after the first 2 weeks what this team's looking like. They host Guilford out of Rockford the day or the day after they're in that Chicago Elite Classic. And that'd be a good game to see because Guilford's got a little juice, and they're the defending Nick 10 champions. But not very often does Simeon graduate all 5 starters. So it's just it's a little bit of unprecedented with that and the new coach. So good luck to Tim Flowers and the new regime.
Collinsville, they've got 6'8" Zach Chambers, and they also have Jamari Weisinger.
Yeah, the K-Hawks. I like Darren Lee as a coach. I think he's one of the best. I mean, maybe one of the more underrated coaches in the state. They're not going to be very deep. If they can stay out of foul trouble, I think they're going to win a lot of games. I think they can win the Southwest Conference, the rugged Southwest Conference. O'Fallon won it last year, going 9-3. So I think I would look for that same record to be the team that wins it. Maybe 10-2. I think 9-3 probably gets it done for one of those teams. Really a traditionally strong conference with O'Fallon, Belleville East, Belleville West, East St. Louis. Alton's kind of hit a skid. Belleville West is on the rebound. They host their own. Collinsville hosts their own Christmas tournament, which has been won by MacArthur the last 2 years. Trying to look at any other games on their schedule that stand out. The non-conference schedule is not great. I'm sure if you ask people in the Metro East area, they'd say I'm probably crazy for having them this high.
I know they have a first. I don't know if it's their first game, but I know it's Heron's first game. I know they were struggling to get games,
Yeah.
but I think they're playing the first.
Yeah, that's
game.
at Heron.
That should
That's
be
at Heron. It's both teams' first game.
That should be an intriguing matchup. See how good Heron is. All right, moving on down the line. DeKalb, Mike Reynolds group, young, talented, maybe a year away. Sean Reynolds and Davion Grant.
I think you could consider this a dress rehearsal for next year. You're going to have to finish the year. They had a little bit going last year, and then Hampshire beat them in the regional. DuPage Valley it's not great, but it's really good. There's like 5 teams that are there's four teams that are just good basketball teams. So they're gonna get challenged in that conference. They're gonna take some road losses. You're gonna have to defend your home court in that conference if you're gonna win it. They got Glenbrook South at the DePaul Prep shootout on January 6th. I might go to that. I've always liked going to that shootout. I used to go to Highland years ago when I was a lot younger and I could travel all over the place whenever I wanted to. And now I got kids and I just don't want to go 5 hours to watch out of state teams play. That January 6th game's looking pretty good. They got Auburn out of Rockford at home on January 20th. Auburn, I don't think we're going to talk about Auburn, but Auburn's got a 26 class that's really good too. But yeah, DeKalb maybe a year away, but maybe not because they can win that sectional.
That's a fun place to go watch a home game too. I don't know if you've ever been to a true home game at DeKalb. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's years ago. The first time I went there, it was when Bianca Lana was there, and they hosted an undefeated LaSalle Peru team, and it was like January, and LP had just won at Washington like the weekend before, and DeKalb. What was the name of that conference? It was a weird, like the Big Northern Illinois Big 12 or something like that.
It was I think Yorkville was in it. Ottawa was in it.
Yeah.
It was
Geneseo.
Yep.
It was spread out along that
Right.
I-80, 88 corridor. That was a conference game. So it was LP and DeKalb, and DeKalb beat them. But that was, that for a new gym, that's one of the better new gyms that you'll see in the state.
Glenbrook South is next up. Nick Taylor, 6'7" senior. Nate Casher, battle tested. Pat Benedict, Phil Ralston's group should be
Yeah,
ready to go again.
yeah, and this is just one of those teams that since Ralston's been there, you got to have them in there. I mean, they've proven year in and year out that they deserve to be there. I'm going to try to see them at Palatine. They play York Wednesday afternoon. I got that one on the docket.
That's going to be a really fun Thanksgiving tournament.
And then they're at the Jack Tosh.
Of course they are.
There's 8 to 10 really nice teams in that Jack Tosh tournament. And then they got DeKalb at the DePaul Prep. They have their own shootout that they just started here recently. That's on January 27th. I don't have an opponent for them yet.
I think they play St. Ignatius.
Okay, well there you go. And then they come up to Rockford, play Auburn on February 4th. Conference schedule is going to prepare them. The non-conference schedule is going to prepare them. That's usually top 4 or 5 teams in that sectional. It's just a log jam. Should be no different this year.
Gotta love the Titan Dome too. Great place to watch games.
Agreed.
York is next. Braden Richardson, AJ Levine. They're ready to bounce back.
Yeah, I think this would be the only team that we talk about that was under 500 last year. So when you go from under 500 to being talked about as a top 25 team, there's either some fool's gold or you're really good. I think they're really good. I saw them a couple of times at Romeoville. I like AJ Levine. He just committed. Where did he commit to?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
It was just today. So if you
Yeah.
didn't see it, I saw it and couldn't see who. I don't remember who it was, but Braden
Right.
Richardson, Brendan Moles, Kyle Waltz. That Western Suburban League is tough. Lions and Hinsdale are going to take a little bit of a step back. I think this team can be second. I think everyone would expect Downers North to win that Western Suburban Silver. I think York can be right there behind them.
West Aurora is next. Mike Fowler is in as the new coach. Terrence Smith is the highly regarded junior. They also have got CJ Savage and Jordan Brooks. We'll see how, speaking of bouncing back, we'll see if the Blackhawks can bounce back this year.
Yeah, Terrence Smith is like one of those generational athletes. He can decide what sport he wants to play in college. You shouldn't be able to be that talented across two sports. But this is their last year in the Southwest Prairie. They're coming home to the
Upstate 8 is next.
The Upstate 8 next year. They're in that Hoops for Healing tournament, which the side that they're on is really nice.
Yes,
I think
it is.
Oswego East, Naperville North, Hinsdale Central. Plan on seeing them play Yorkville. I've never been to West Aurora, so this would be my inaugural trip. They're at Pontiac. I think they're at the War on the Shore.
Yep, they've got New Trier in that one.
They got New Trier. So yeah, I know. I expected them. I expected more of them last year. It just didn't work out. They had a really nice summer.
Coming in at number 21, we've got O'Fallon, Jaden Rush, Will Brown.
Rennie Harris also. Harris and Rush. I think if you took a straw poll, you'd probably be pulling them more often than not for the best backcourt tandem in the Southwest Conference. Those two guards were a part of the reason that O'Fallon demolished Quincy in the playoffs last year. O'Fallon did graduate all of their size. I don't know what they have coming up, but there's not going to be a whole lot of legitimate 4A size for this team. But from the guard standpoint, they're going to have everything you need. An opportunity to start the season off with some wins getting racked up. They're at that Jacksonville Crimson Classic. They got Brooks out of Chicago, Marion in the host Jacksonville. And they go at Granite City, and they're at Belleville West, and I'm told Belleville West is on the rebound. So that could be a scare on the road. But then, they got Metamora in the Illinois Springfield shootout on December 16th. They could easily go into that game undefeated.
Yeah, and they host the O'Fallon. Was it the Bank of?
Yeah, they had that shootout.
Right in February.
First week of February. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
I used to go to that every year, and then I had kids, and now I can't go anymore.
Yeah.
It's a damnedest thing.
At some point, I'll get down there. That looks like a really cool gym.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite gyms from this millennium. I think they built it in like 2000.
Right. Lake Park is next, number 22. They're led by Cam Cerise, does it all, and then they also got Tommy Rockford.
You've touched on the two major focal points. I think they're ready to dethrone Wheaton South from that Duquesne conference. I should have checked when the last time Lake Park won a conference championship because they haven't won it since this conference been around.
Right.
Uh, I'm sure they were in the
They were in the upstate eight, I'm pretty
they were in the
sure.
upstate eight. I'm sure they won that at some point. But yeah, could end up being a little low during the Pekin Holiday tournament. As I've said before, there's 8 teams. You know, the quarterfinals at Pekin should be really good. And what's great about that tournament is they play the quarters and the semifinals on the same day. So you could go there. I think if they start that on the 28th this year. So you go to Pekin on the
Right.
29th. You go to Pekin on the 29th, you're going to see outstanding basketball.
I was lucky enough to see Cam Series drop 40 last year against Wheaton North. That was I think he finished it off with like a dunk on a breakaway. It was, and that was in a comeback too. Wheaton North got out early, and that kid just took over. Really, really fun to watch. All right, Oswego East is number 23 on this list. They lose a lot, but they bring back Javion Starwood.
Yep, he's the only starter that's coming back. On paper, if you look at that, you say, well, they're going to have a considerable drop off. But that's why I go to summer hoops. You get to learn about the kids that are coming up. Noah Mason, kind of a wiry frame. He's about 6'4", 6'5". He'll be the number 2. Some nights he'll be the number 1. But Javion Starwood is an electric athlete, an electric scorer. They got some bodies. You know, I couldn't find out most of those kids' names when I was standing there. I remember I went over and asked somebody, who's that kid? And they said, well, that's Noah Mason. So I got his name. They got size, they got bodies. There's no reason to think you know, that they shouldn't win win the conference again, or at least, well, it's going to be them or Yorkville on that Southwest Prairie West. You got Joliet West on the other side. As we go east, where are they at for holiday? In the Hinsdale thing?
They play in Hinsdale. Yep.
So yeah, I know they'll think they should be higher, but you know, for only one starter coming back, I like 23.
Mattia Valley is number 24 out of the DVC. Will Ashford, James Parker, top 2 players that return.
Yeah, and Jake Nozick, he was hurt all last year. He's about 6'7". Another one of those good summer finds of mine that they really stood out to me. And 3 really good players, not a whole lot of depth, but they're in that DuPage Valley Conference with Naperville North, DeKalb, Waubonsie. Again, not you know, it's in that second tier type of conference. You know, it's not like the Central Suburban or the Western Suburban, but it's still a pretty good conference, especially this year. They're going to get Downers North first Saturday of the season. They got St. Pat's allegedly at the Ridgewood shootout. I was told that Ridgewood shootout's coming back. Did you give me that shootout? You usually give me that schedule. I don't know if you gave
I'm
that
not
to me
sure
or
if
if I
I
just
gave you.
pieced it together or not.
Yeah.
But so Matea goes down to the State Farm Classic this year. That'll be an interesting visit for them. I think they're at Wheaton South for Martin Luther King. You know, they got Dick DeKalb just 2 nights before that St. Pat's game, so it's kind of a bear of a schedule to start. And they got Oswego East and Nequa. They could fall out pretty quick if they're not ready.
Yep, and that's a fun conference to keep an eye on as well too. So I feel like there's a lot of teams that could beat anyone any given night in that one. So Mattia Mustangs, looking forward to watching them be competitive again this year. Stevenson wraps it up at number 25. They bring in the big transfer, Atticus Richmond, 6'8", but they also bring back Jack Dobbs and Aiden Bardick.
Yeah, Atticus Richmond. I think he was at Deerfield 2 years ago, and then he went to some prep school on the East Coast, and then he came back. And I even reached out to the new coach Will Benson. I was like, is he back, or is he just like back for the RB shootout as like a dress rehearsal type thing? And he's here. He's gonna play. So he was the difference maker for me for getting them into the top 25. They're in the Hinsdale Holiday Tournament. They should win the North Suburban Conference. And then what? I can never remember what side of the sectional they're on. They're on the west side of that North Suburban sectional, so they would go in with the mid suburban teams. You know, they'll be in the. You can mess around and win that sectional. Hersey's in there. Conant, Prospect, new coach, the Hall of Fame, Pat Ambrose. He's moving on, but still a lot to like from the Patriots.
That'll be an interesting conference as well. I know there's some young talent in that league as well, so it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. But Stevenson looks to be the front runner for sure. Well, that'll do it for if you stay with us this long for the top 25 class 1 through 4A. Thank you again for joining us. We'll be back next week. Aaron, we really appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely.
And we'll definitely be seeing you in the gym as we go along through the season. So
sounds good. Thanks, Brady.
Thanks again for your time, and take care, everyone.